I thought Medicare would save me. Instead, my medical debt took my home. I'm 63. I worked 31 years, paid off my house early, and did everything they told me to do right. Last year, I had a kitchen table where I worked, a neighbor who waved each morning, and keys to a place that was mine. Then my body broke, twice. The hospital said Medicare would cover it. They didn't say cover meant 80%. They didn't say the gap could swallow everything. 20% doesn't sound like much until it's 6,000, then 16,000, then a legal letter saying they can take your home. I thought insurance was a net. It was a sieve. Bills came faster than answers. Savings drained. Calls went to voicemail. One morning I woke up on a car seat, my back screaming, wondering how I got here. Let me take you back to the stroke that started it, and the fine print no one reads until it's too late. When you do everything right and still lose your home, what part of the system was ever built to catch you? I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday morning in March when my brain decided to short circuit. 1 second. I was proofreading a cardiology report, some doctor's dictation about a 60-year-old man with an ejection fraction of 30%, and the next second the words were sliding off the screen like water. My left hand went numb. The coffee mug tipped over and shattered on the linoleum, brown liquid spreading toward my feet, and I couldn't make my mouth say the word help. I'd owned that duplex for 17 years. Paid it off 3 years early, which felt like winning something. The kitchen was small, but it got good light in the morning, and I liked working there better than at a desk. I'd sit with my laptop and a mug of coffee and transcribe medical reports for doctors who couldn't be bothered to type their own notes. 31 years I'd done that work. I was good at it. I knew the terminology, the rhythm of medical speech, the way doctors pause before saying something they don't want to say. But that morning my hand wouldn't close around the pen I was holding. It just hung there, fingers loose, and the pen rolled across the table and onto the floor. I tried to stand up and my legs folded. I went down hard, my shoulders slamming into the table leg, and I remember thinking very clearly, this is it. This is a stroke. I'd transcribed enough neurology reports to know that I could hear Carol next door, moving around in her kitchen. Our walls were thin. I tried to yell, but what came out was a garbled mess, syllables in the wrong order, sounds that didn't mean anything. I used my right hand to drag myself across the floor toward the door. The coffee was soaking into my jeans. The broken mug pieces were everywhere. I got to the door and pounded on it with my good hand. 3 hard thumps, and then I just lay there waiting. Carol found me maybe 2 minutes later. She had a key for emergencies. We'd traded keys years ago, back when we both had husbands, and it seemed like a practical neighbor thing to do. She opened the door and screamed my name, and I tried to tell her I was okay, but my mouth still wasn't working right. She called 911. I could hear her on the phone, her voice high and fast, giving my address, saying stroke and unresponsive, even though I was very responsive. I just couldn't talk. The paramedics came and asked me questions I couldn't answer. What's your name? Where are you? What day is it? I knew all of it, but I couldn't get the words out. They loaded me onto a stretcher, and I caught a glimpse of Carol standing in my doorway crying, her hands over her mouth. The morning light was coming through the kitchen window and landing on the spilled coffee and the broken mug. And I thought about how I'd need to clean that up later. How the coffee would stain if it sat too long. In the ambulance, they took my blood pressure and started in 4 and asked me to squeeze their hands. My right hand worked fine. My left hand did nothing. The paramedic, a young guy with a buzz cut and kind eyes, said, "You're going to be okay. We're taking you to St. Joseph's. They've got a great stroke team." I wanted to tell him I knew that. I'd transcribed reports from their neurologists for years, but all I could do was nod the ER. They moved fast. CT scan, blood work, neurology consult. The doctor was a woman in her 40s with gray streaks in her ponytail and a calm voice. She explained that I'd had an ischemic stroke, a clot in the left middle cerebral artery. They'd given me a clot-busting drug. I'd probably regain most of my function, but it would take time. She said probably like it was a sure thing, but I caught the hedge in it. They admitted me. 3 days in the hospital, monitors beeping, nurses coming in every 2 hours to check my pupils and make me squeeze their hands and lift my legs. Slowly my speech came back, words arriving in the wrong order at first, then straightening out. My left hand started responding, clumsy and weak, but moving. I felt like I was rebuilding myself from scratch, relearning how to be a person. On day 2, a social worker came by. She had a clipboard and a tired smile. She talked about discharge planning, about rehab, about what I'd need at home. I nodded along, still foggy from the medications. She mentioned Medicare, and I felt a little flutter of relief. I'd been paying into Medicare my whole working life. I'd hit 65 2 years ago and thought, finally, I'm covered. I'm safe. She said something about percentages and copays, but I wasn't really listening. I was just thinking about going home, about getting back to work, about this being a bad detour that would end soon. The day I was discharged, they sent me out in a wheelchair with a walker and a plastic bag full of pill bottles. Carol picked me up. She drove me home and helped me inside and stood in my kitchen staring at the clean floor. Someone had mopped up the coffee, probably her, and she hugged me carefully, like I might break. "You're going to be fine," she said, and I wanted to believe her. The bills started arriving a week later. The hospital bill came in a white envelope with a cellophane window. I opened it at the kitchen table, same spot where I'd been sitting when the stroke hit. The top of the page said, "Patient responsibility," and below that was a number, $6, 318.42. I stared at it for a long time. I'd thought Medicare covered hospital stays. I'd thought that was the whole point of paying into the system for decades. But there it was in small print at the bottom of the page. Medicare Part A paid their portion. Medicare Part B paid their portion. Remaining balance is patient responsibility. I called the billing office. Waited on hold for 12 minutes listening to a loop of soft jazz and a recorded voice reminding me that I could pay online. Finally, a woman picked up. I asked her to explain the bill. She sounded tired, like she'd explained this 1,000 times before. Medicare Part A covers 80% of hospital costs after you meet your deductible. Part B covers 80% of doctor visits and outpatient services. You're responsible for the remaining 20%, plus your deductibles and copays. 20%. It didn't sound like much when she said it like that. But 20% of $31,000 was over $6,000. I had $8,000 in savings. I'd been careful my whole life. I'd skipped vacations and driven old cars and brought my lunch to work in a paper bag. $8,000 felt like a solid cushion. Until 20% took most of it. "Can I set up a payment plan?" I asked. "Of course," she said. She sounded relieved, like I'd said the magic words. We worked out $340 a month. It would take 19 months to pay off. I wrote it down on the back of an envelope. 340 times 19. I could manage that. Then the bill from Evergreen Rehabilitation Center arrived. I'd spent 10 days there after the hospital, learning how to live again. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. They taught me how to button my shirt with one hand that worked and one that didn't. They taught me how to write my name in shaky letters that looked like a child's handwriting. They taught me how to walk with a walker, how to go upstairs, how to get dressed without falling over. The bill was for $2,100. Not covered by Medicare. I called them too. A different tired voice, a different explanation. Skilled nursing facilities have different coverage rules. Medicare covers up to 100 days, but only if you meet certain criteria. Your stay was classified as custodial care, not skilled nursing, so Medicare didn't cover it. But I was getting therapy, I said. Physical therapy. Occupational therapy. Yes, but the primary reason for the stay was custodial. That's how it was coded. I didn't understand the difference, and I didn't have the energy to argue. I set up another payment plan. $180 a month. Add that to the hospital plan, and I was at $520 a month just for the stroke. Plus, there was the neurologist bill, $890 for 2 follow-up visits. I set up a third payment plan, $95 a month, $615 a month in medical bills. My Social Security was $1847. I'd started taking it at 62 because I thought it would be extra money, a supplement to my work income. I'd never imagined it would be my only income. I sat at the kitchen table with all 3 bills spread out in front of me and did the math on the back of an envelope. 1847 minus 615 was 1232. My property taxes were $3,200 a year, which broke down to $267 a month if I saved for them. Utilities ran about $250. That left $715 for everything else. Food, gas, phone, prescriptions, everything. I could make it work. I had to make it work. I'd been careful before, and I'd be more careful now. I'd stop buying meat. I'd unplug everything I wasn't using. I'd drive only when absolutely necessary. I'd been through tight times before, after the divorce, when the kids were young and child support didn't always come, and I'd made it through. This was just another tight time that I wrote out the first checks. 340 to the hospital, 180 to Evergreen, 95 to the neurologist. I put them in envelopes and stuck stamps on them and walked them out to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. My left hand was still weak, but I could hold the envelopes. Small victories. That was April. I thought the worst was behind me. I thought I could get back to work, build my savings back up, get ahead of the bills. I sat down at my laptop that afternoon and opened a new transcription file. A pulmonology report. I put my hands on the keyboard and started typing. My left hand cramped after 10 minutes. Not just tired, cramped hard, fingers curling into a claw, pain shooting up my forearm. I shook it out and tried again. 5 minutes later, it cramped again. I switched to typing one-handed with my right, but that was too slow. I was supposed to transcribe in real time, keep up with the doctor's voice. I couldn't do it with one hand. I tried for 2 hours. Got through maybe a quarter of the report. Made mistakes I never used to make. Wrong words, misspelled terms, missed entire sentences. I saved the file and closed the laptop and sat there staring at my hands. My left hand was still cramping, thumb pulled tight against my palm. I massaged it with my right hand until the cramp released. The next day, I tried again. Same thing. 20 minutes in, the cramp hit. I pushed through it, forced myself to keep typing, but the mistakes piled up. I was going to have to proofread everything twice, 3 times. It would take me 3 times as long to finish a report, which meant I could only take a third of the work I used to take at a third of the income that I had a deadline on a cardiology report that Friday. I'd taken the job 2 weeks before the stroke, back when I thought I could handle anything. I worked on it in short bursts, 15 minutes at a time, letting my hand rest between sessions. By Thursday night, I was only halfway done. I emailed the client and asked for an extension. They wrote back, "Is everything okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. I wrote, "I've had some health issues. I'll have it to you by Monday." I finished it Sunday night, 3 days late. Sent it off and waited for the client to confirm receipt. They didn't. On Tuesday, I got an email. "We've decided to move forward with another transcriptionist. Thank you for your work." I stared at the screen. That client had been with me for 6 years. Steady work, good pay, always on time. Now they were gone. I opened my bank account and looked at the balance. $7,300. I'd started April with $8,000. 1 month, and I was down $700. I had 2 more payments due before the end of May. If I kept losing clients, if I couldn't work full-time, the math wouldn't hold. I'd run out of money before I ran out of bills, but I still thought I could fix it. I still thought this was temporary. I still thought if I just worked harder, rested my hand more, found a better way to type, it would come back. It didn't come back. July came in hot. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer over the pavement and turns your car into an oven if you leave it in the sun. I was sitting at my desk with the window open and a fan blowing warm air across the room, trying to transcribe a dictation about coronary artery disease. My left hand was already cramping, and I'd only been working for 10 minutes. Then my vision went strange. Not blurry, strange. Like someone had tilted the world 5 degrees to the left, and everything was sliding off angle. I blinked, and it didn't clear. I stood up, and my legs felt loose, like the joints weren't quite connected. I knew what this was. I'd been here before. I didn't panic this time. I walked to the kitchen, slow and careful, and picked up my phone. Dialed 911. Told the dispatcher I was having a stroke. Gave my address. Unlocked the front door and left it open a crack so the paramedics wouldn't have to break it down. Then I sat on the couch with my walker beside me and waited. The stroke was smaller this time. That's what the neurologist said later. Smaller, but significant. Another clot, different artery. Less damage than the first one, but enough to matter. They kept me in the hospital for 3 days again. More scans, more blood tests, more neurologists shining lights in my eyes and asking me to push against their hands. The doctor with the gray ponytail came by on the 2nd day. She sat on the edge of the bed and folded her hands in her lap. "Your fine motor control in your left hand isn't going to come all the way back," she said. "The damage from the first stroke was already limiting your function. This second stroke affected some of the same pathways. You're going to have permanent deficits." I knew what that meant, but I asked anyway. "Can I still work?" She looked at me for a long moment. "What kind of work do you do?" "Medical transcription. Typing mostly." She shook her head. "I don't think that's going to be viable long-term. You might be able to type for short periods, but the cramping and fatigue are going to get worse, not better." "I'm sorry." I nodded. I didn't cry. I just nodded and thanked her and waited for her to leave. Then I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles and doing math in my head. No work income. $18.47 a month in Social Security. $6.15 in medical bills. That left $12.32 for everything else. And I still had property taxes and utilities and food and gas, and now a whole new round of hospital bills coming. They discharged me on a Friday. Sent me home with more prescriptions, more instructions, more follow-up appointments. Carol picked me up again. She didn't ask questions, just drove me home and helped me inside and made sure I had food in the fridge. Before she left, she hugged me and said, "You're going to figure this out." I wasn't sure I believed her. The bills from the second stroke started arriving in August. Another $16,000. Medicare paid their 80%. I owed $3,400 more. I called the hospital and set up another payment plan. $280 a month. Add that to the other bills, and I was at $895 a month. $1847 minus $895 left $952. Property taxes took $267 of that. Utilities took $250. I was down to $435 for everything else. $435 a month for food, gas, phone, prescriptions, everything that I couldn't do it. The math didn't work. I called Social Security and asked about disability. The woman on the phone was patient, walked me through the application process. I'd need medical records, work history, documentation of my condition. Processing time was 4 to 6 months, maybe longer. What am I supposed to do in the meantime? I asked. You can apply for emergency assistance through your county, or talk to family. I didn't have emergency assistance. And family, Melissa in Portland was barely making rent with 2 kids and another on the way. Ryan in Sacramento hadn't answered my calls in 6 months. I was on my own. I started cutting everything I could. Stopped buying meat. Stopped driving except for doctor's appointments. Unplugged everything. The TV, the microwave, the coffee maker. Only ran the fridge and the fan. Stopped using hot water except for showers once a week. Ate crackers and peanut butter, rice and canned beans. My grocery bill dropped to under $100 a month. It still wasn't enough. The collection call started in September. The hospital billing department calling about a missed payment. I explained about the disability application, about the second stroke, about not being able to work. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. We need to set up automatic withdrawal from your checking account. Do you have your routing number? I can't do automatic withdrawal, I said. I don't have enough in my account. Then we'll need to discuss other options. Other options meant sending my account to collections, which meant they could put a lien on my house. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know medical debt could take your home. But Carol's son Derek was a paralegal, and when I showed him the letter, he went pale. They can force a sale, he said. In Washington, a creditor can put a lien on your property and force you to sell to satisfy the debt. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the letter. Legal letterhead. Official language. A lien amount of $22,000, the total of everything I still owed. I'd paid off this house early. I'd been so proud of that. And now they were going to take it because I got sick and Medicare only covered 80% that I called legal aid. They said they could help, but their wait list was 11 months. I called the hospital financial assistance line. They said I made too much. $18.47 a month was over their threshold. Never mind that $895 of that went to medical bills. Never mind that I had $400 left for everything else. I made too much. I applied anyway. Filled out the forms, sent in my bank statements, documented every expense. They denied me in writing. I kept the letter in a folder with all the other letters. Evidence of trying. Evidence that I'd done everything I could. The foreclosure notice came in January. 60 days to vacate or the house would go to auction. I held the paper in my hands and read it 3 times. 60 days. 2 months. Then I'd have nowhere to go. I called Melissa. She answered on the 3rd ring, and I could hear the baby crying in the background. "Mom, I can't talk long. They're foreclosing on the house," I said. Silence. Then, "Oh, Mom," and she started crying. April 2023, and I was spreading bills across my kitchen table like a bad hand of cards. Hospital, $6,318. Rehab center, $2,100. Neurologist follow-up, $890. I had my calculator, a notepad, and $8,000 in savings that suddenly felt like nothing. I called each billing office. Navigated phone trees. Waited on hold. Explained my situation to people who'd heard it 1,000 times before. The hospital offered $340 a month. Evergreen Rehabilitation said $180. The neurologist's office would take $95. I wrote it all down, added it up. $615 a month in medical bills. My Social Security was $1,847. I'd started taking it at 62 because I thought it would be extra money, something to pad my transcription income. Now it was all I had. 1847 minus 615 left 1232. Property taxes were $3,200 a year, $267 a month if I saved for them. Utilities ran $250. That left $715 for everything else that I could make it work. I had to. I wrote the first checks, my left hand still clumsy but functional enough. $340, $180, $95. Put them in envelopes, stuck on stamps, walked them to the mailbox. My savings account dropped to $7, $385. That afternoon, I sat down to work. Opened a transcription file, a pulmonology report, routine stuff. Put my hands on the keyboard and started typing. 10 minutes in, my left hand cramped. Not tired, cramped hard, fingers curling into a claw, pain shooting up my forearm. I shook it out. Tried again. 5 minutes, and it happened again. I switched to one-handed typing. Too slow. I was supposed to keep up with the doctor's voice, transcribe in real time. I couldn't do it with one hand. I worked for 2 hours and got through maybe a quarter of the report. Made mistakes I never used to make. Wrong words. Misspelled terms. Entire sentences missing. I saved the file and stared at my hands. My left hand was cramping again, thumb pulled tight. I massaged it until it released. The next day I tried again. Same thing. 20 minutes, then the cramp. I had a deadline on a cardiology report that Friday. I'd taken the job before the stroke. I worked in 15-minute bursts, resting between. By Thursday night, I was only halfway done. I emailed the client. I've had some health issues. I'll have it to you by Monday. They wrote back, is everything okay? I didn't know how to answer that. I finished the report Sunday night, 3 days late. Sent it off. Tuesday, I got their response. We've decided to move forward with another transcriptionist. Thank you for your work. 6 years with that client. Gone. I checked my bank balance. $7,300. 1 month, and I was down $700. 2 more payments due before May ended. The math was slipping. But I still thought I could fix it. July came hot. The kind of heat that made the air shimmer and turned my duplex into an oven. I was at my desk, fan blowing warm air, trying to transcribe a dictation about coronary artery disease. My left hand was already cramping. Then my vision went strange. Not blurry, tilted. Like someone had shifted the world 5 degrees and everything was sliding. I blinked. It didn't clear. I stood up. My legs felt loose, joints disconnected. I knew this feeling. I walked to the kitchen, slow and careful. Picked up my phone. Dialed 911. I'm having a stroke, I told the dispatcher. Gave my address. Unlocked the front door so the paramedics wouldn't have to break it down. Then I sat on the couch with my walker beside me and waited. The stroke was smaller this time. That's what the neurologist said. Smaller, but significant. Another clot, different artery. 3 more days in the hospital. More scans. More tests. More doctors asking me to push against their hands. The doctor with the gray ponytail came by on day 2. Sat on the edge of my bed. Your fine motor control in your left hand isn't going to come all the way back, she said. This second stroke affected some of the same pathways. You're going to have permanent deficits. I knew what that meant, but I asked anyway. Can I still work? She looked at me for a long moment. What kind of work do you do? Medical transcription. Typing. She shook her head. I don't think that's going to be viable long term. The cramping and fatigue are going to get worse, not better. I'm sorry. I nodded. Didn't cry. Just nodded and thanked her. When she left, I lay there staring at ceiling tiles, doing math in my head. No work income. $1,847 a month Social Security. $615 in medical bills. $1,232 left for everything else. And now a whole new round of hospital bills coming. They discharged me Friday. More prescriptions. More instructions. More follow-up appointments. Carol picked me up. Drove me home. Made sure I had food. Before she left, she hugged me. You're going to figure this out. I wasn't sure I believed her. The bills from the second stroke arrived in August. Another $16,000. Medicare paid 80%. I owed $3,400 more. I called the hospital. Set up another payment plan. $280 a month. Add that to everything else. $895 a month now. 1847 minus 895 left $952. Property taxes took $267. Utilities took $250. I was down to $435 a month for food, gas, phone, prescriptions, everything. The math didn't work anymore. I called Social Security. Asked about disability. Processing time, 4 to 6 months. Maybe longer. What do I do in the meantime? I asked. Apply for emergency assistance through your county. Or talk to family. I didn't have emergency assistance. And family. Melissa could barely make her own rent. Ryan hadn't answered my calls in months. I was on my own. August, September. No income except Social Security. I made a spreadsheet on my phone. Income, $1,847. Property taxes, $267 monthly if I saved. Utilities, $250. Payment plans, $615. Medications, $320. That left $395 for everything else. New bills from the second stroke kept arriving. I owed another $3,400. Collection calls started. We need to set up automatic withdrawal, they said. Do you have your routing number? I can't do automatic withdrawal. I don't have enough. Then we need to discuss other options. I stopped answering unknown numbers. I cut everything. Stopped buying meat. Stopped driving except for doctor appointments. Unplugged everything. TV, microwave, coffee maker. Only ran the fridge and fan. Stopped using hot water except for 1 shower a week. Ate crackers and peanut butter, rice and canned beans. Grocery bill, under $100 a month. Still not enough? The legal notice came in November. White envelope. Law firm letterhead. The hospital had filed a lien against my property. $22,000. Everything I owed. I stared at it. I didn't know medical debt could take your house. I thought liens were for unpaid taxes, contractor disputes, not hospital bills. Carol's son Derek came over. He's a paralegal. I showed him the letter, and his face went pale. They can force a sale, he said. In Washington state, a creditor can put a lien on your property and force you to sell to satisfy the debt. I'd paid this house off early. Been so proud of that. And now they were taking it because I got sick and Medicare only covered 80%. I called legal aid. 11-month wait list. I called the hospital financial assistance line. I made too much. $1, $847 was over their threshold. Never mind that $895 went to medical bills. Never mind that I had $435 left for everything else. I applied anyway. Filled out forms. Sent bank statements. Documented every expense. They denied me in writing. I kept the letter in a folder with all the others. Evidence that I tried. The foreclosure notice came in January. 60 days to vacate or the house goes to auction. I held the paper and read it 3 times. 60 days. 2 months. Then nowhere to go. I called Melissa. Heard the baby crying in the background. Mom, I can't talk long. They're foreclosing on the house, I said. Silence. Then crying. Oh, Mom. October 2023. Derek sat at my kitchen table with the lien paperwork spread out in front of him. He brought a yellow legal pad and was taking notes, his paralegal training kicking in. But his face told me everything. A medical lien can force a property sale in Washington, he said. Once they get a judgment, they can file for foreclosure. You'd have to satisfy the debt or lose the house. I didn't know that was legal, I said. Most people don't. I called legal aid the next morning. Waited on hold for 23 minutes. The intake worker was sympathetic. We can help, she said, but our wait list is currently 11 months. 11 months. The foreclosure would be done in 2. I called the hospital financial assistance line. Navigated another phone tree. Finally reached a real person. Explained my income, my expenses, my situation. She put me on hold. Came back 5 minutes later. Your monthly income exceeds our threshold by $43. I'm sorry, $43. That was the difference between help and nothing. Can I appeal? I asked. You can submit an application. We'll review it. I spent 2 days filling out forms. Bank statements. Expense documentation. Letters from my doctors. Proof of disability application. I mailed it all in a thick envelope with extra postage. 3 weeks later, I got a 1-page letter. Application denied. Income too high. I sat at my kitchen table and researched bankruptcy. Found a lawyer who did free consultations. Went to his office, a strip mall near the highway, cheap carpet and fluorescent lights. He listened to my story, took notes, did some calculations. Bankruptcy might delay foreclosure, he said, but it won't solve your income problem. You'd still need to maintain the property taxes, insurance, utilities. Can you do that on Social Security alone? I did the math out loud, not with the medical payment plans. Then bankruptcy just delays the inevitable. You'd be homeless in 6 months instead of 2. I thanked him and left. Sat in my car in the parking lot and stared at the dashboard. Every door I tried was locked. Every system had a gap I fell through. The foreclosure notice arrived the first week of January. Thick envelope. Official letterhead. 60 days to vacate. Property would go to auction March 12th. I called Melissa that night. She picked up and I could hear her kids in the background, the TV on, normal life happening. They're foreclosing, I said. She started crying before I finished the sentence. Mom, I'm so sorry. We're barely making rent. We still owe you for the car repairs. I'm pregnant again, and I know, I said. I know, honey. Can Ryan help? I haven't talked to Ryan in months. Silence. Then, I'll try to call him. Don't. It's okay. But I tried anyway. Called him that night. Straight to voicemail. I left a message. Explained about the foreclosure, about needing help, about running out of options. He didn't call back. 3 days later, I got a text. Mom, I told you I can't deal with this right now. That was all. No explanation. No elaboration. Just a wall where my son used to be. I sat with my phone in my hand and realized no one was coming. No rescue. No last-minute save. I was alone in this, and the house was already gone. November 2023. Phone in my hand. Melissa's number on the screen. I almost didn't call. Knew what she'd say before she said it. But I was out of options. She picked up on the third ring. Hey, Mom, what's up? The baby was crying in the background. Someone was running water. They're foreclosing on the house, I said. I have 60 days. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt longer. Then she started crying. Not loud. Quiet. The kind of crying you do when you're trying to hide it. Oh, Mom. Oh, no. I know you can't help, I said. I know things are tight. I needed to tell someone. We're barely making rent, she said. Her voice was thick. Jake's working overtime, but it's still not enough. The kids need new shoes. The baby's got ear infections, and we hit our deductible, and she stopped. Took a breath. We still haven't paid you back for the car repairs. I know, honey. That's $1,200 you can't spare. I'm pregnant again. Did I tell you? Due in April. We're going to need a bigger place, and I don't know how. Another breath. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. You've got your own family to take care of. Your family, too. I know. After we hung up, I sat there holding the phone. Thought about calling Ryan. Hadn't talked to him in 6 months, maybe longer. Used to be close, back when he was younger. Then something shifted about 2 years ago. He got distant. Stopped returning calls. When he did answer, he was short, distracted. Like I was interrupting something more important. I called anyway. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I left a message. Kept it simple. Ryan, it's Mom. I'm in some trouble. The house is being foreclosed. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. He didn't call that day, or the next, or the day after that. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number, but I recognized it after a second. Ryan's number. I deleted it after the last time he didn't return my calls, but I still knew it. Mom, I told you I can't deal with this right now. That was the whole message. No elaboration. No explanation. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. Tried to remember when he'd told me he couldn't deal with something. Couldn't remember. Tried to figure out what this meant. The foreclosure, me in general, our relationship. Couldn't figure it out. I typed back, I understand. Take care of yourself. He didn't respond. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone face down and thought about my family. Melissa crying over a situation she couldn't fix. Ryan putting up walls I couldn't see over. My ex-husband dead 6 years now. Buried in a cemetery in Olympia I hadn't visited since the funeral. Used to tell me I worried too much about money. That I should loosen up. Live a little. It made me so angry back then. Now I wondered if he'd been right. If all my saving and careful planning had been for nothing anyway. The auction date was March 12th. The realtor's sign went up 2 weeks before Christmas. Red and white. Foreclosure auction. Carol cried when she saw it. Came over with a casserole I couldn't eat and hugged me in my kitchen. I wish I could help, she said. I know. Nobody could help. That was the truth of it. Everyone was too close to the edge themselves. March 2024. The house sold at auction on a Tuesday for $178,000. $43,000 under market value. After the liens, legal fees, and back taxes, I got a check $4.9 for 100. I had 30 days to leave. I started packing on a Wednesday. What do you keep when your whole life has to fit in a 2005 Honda Accord? I kept clothes, enough for a week, maybe two. Kept my medications in a small cooler. Kept the walker even though I didn't need it much anymore. Kept photos in a shoebox. Birth certificates, social security card, important papers in a folder. 2 blankets. A pillow. My phone charger. Everything else I left. The furniture Carol could have. The dishes, the books, the microwave, the coffee maker. 17 years of small accumulations. I put it all in the living room and texted Carol. She came over and cried and said she'd find homes for everything. The morning I left was a Tuesday. Gray sky, mist in the air. I loaded the last bag into the back seat, folded the walker and wedged it behind the passenger seat. Checked the house one more time. Empty rooms. Stained carpet where the couch had been. Nail holes in the walls where pictures used to hang. Carol stood on her porch watching, tears running down her face. I waved. She waved back. I got in the car and pulled out of the driveway that didn't know where I was going. Just away. I drove to a motel on Pacific Avenue. The sign said $67 per night. I sat in the parking lot with my calculator. I had $9,400. 67 a night was $469 a week. Times 4 was $1,876 a month, plus tax made it about $2,000. I could last 4.5 months. Maybe 5 if I was careful. Then what? I checked in. The room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. Thin walls. A bed that sagged in the middle. A TV bolted to the dresser. But it had a door that locked and a bathroom, and it was inside. I stayed 3 nights. Did the math every morning. 3 nights was $214 including tax. I had $91.86 left. At this rate, I'd be broke in 63 days. I couldn't afford to be broke. Couldn't afford first and last month's rent on an apartment. Couldn't afford anything. On the 4th morning, I checked out at dawn. The clerk barely looked at me. I loaded everything back in the car and sat in the parking lot as the sun came up. I'd done everything right. Worked for 31 years. Paid off my house early. Saved money. Paid into Medicare my whole life. And now I was living in my car because 20% of a hospital bill was enough to take everything. I started the engine. Drove to a 24-hour Walgreens and parked in the back near the dumpsters. It was 6 in the morning. The lot was empty. I reclined the seat as far as it would go. Cracked the windows. Locked the doors. This was home now, late March 2024. The first night in the car I thought I wouldn't sleep. Thought I'd be too scared, too uncomfortable, too aware of where I was and what I'd become. But exhaustion won. I tilted the seat back, pulled a blanket over myself, and closed my eyes. I woke up 3 hours later with my back screaming. Not just sore, locked up, a hot knot of pain above my hip radiating down my left leg. The stroke had done something to my tolerance for this. My body wasn't cooperating the way I needed it to. It was 4 in the morning. Still dark. The Walgreens lights hummed and flickered in the parking lot. I tried to shift positions, but there was nowhere to go in a Honda Accord. The seat wouldn't recline any further. My legs were cramped. My neck was kinked. I sat up slowly. Every movement hurt. Looked around the parking lot. Empty except for one other car near the entrance. I wondered if someone was sleeping in that one too. The next night was worse. Same back pain, but now my left hand was cramping too, fingers curling up while I slept. I'd wake up and have to massage it until it released. By the 3rd night, I was only getting 2, maybe 3 hours of sleep. I'd wake up disoriented, forgetting where I was for a few seconds. Then it would come back, and I'd feel this wash of shame so heavy I could barely breathe. Days I drove around trying to look normal. Charged my phone at the public library. Used their bathroom to wash up, paper towels and hand soap, brushing my teeth in quick furtive strokes when no one else was there. I'd look at myself in the mirror and barely recognize the person looking back. Gray skin, dark circles, hair that needed washing. I ate in the car. Crackers and peanut butter, granola bars, apples that I'd buy one at a time at the dollar store. Drank water from the library fountain, filled an old water bottle, and kept it in the passenger seat that I called the disability office every few days. Same answer every time, still processing. I wanted to scream at them, tell them I was living in my car, that I needed the decision now, not in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long they felt like taking. But I didn't scream, just said thank you and hung up. By the end of the first week, the Walgreens manager noticed me, knocked on my window at 6 in the morning. I rolled it down. He was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a name tag that said Kevin. "You can't park here overnight," he said. Not mean, just stating a fact. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll move." "Are you okay? Do you need?" He stopped. Didn't know how to finish the question. "I'm fine," I said. He nodded and walked away. I started the car and left. I tried a church parking lot next. Stayed there for 4 nights before someone complained. Then a rest stop on I-5. State Patrol started circling after 2 nights. Finally, I found an abandoned Sears, big empty lot behind the building. 3 other vehicles were there. A blue van with a dented fender, a gray pickup with a camper shell, a sedan with blankets over the windows that we didn't talk to each other. There was an unspoken agreement to pretend we weren't all doing the same thing. I'd see them sometimes, the van guy getting in and out, the pickup guy stretching his back beside his truck. We'd look away fast. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. One morning I saw an older man, maybe 70, washing his face with a bottle of water beside the pickup, using a rag, scrubbing his neck, his arms. I looked away before he could see me watching. Didn't want to admit we were the same now. The back pain got worse. I couldn't afford a doctor visit. My Medicare copay was $45 and I was rationing every dollar. I bought ibuprofen at the dollar store. Took 4 at a time, which I knew was too many. Didn't care that I wasn't sleeping more than 3 hours a night. When I did sleep, I'd wake up in a panic, thinking someone was breaking into the car, my heart slamming. Thought I might be having another stroke. Started parking near St. Joseph's ER some nights. Not in the lot, on the street nearby. Close enough that if something happened, someone might find me. Close enough to feel like I was still connected to the world of people who got help when they needed it. April 2024. I was rotating between locations now. Couldn't stay anywhere too long or someone would notice. The church lot lasted a week until a deacon knocked on my window Sunday morning, polite but firm. "This is private property. You'll need to move along." The I-5 rest stop gave me 3 nights. Then State Patrol started circling, slowing down as they passed my car, writing down my license plate. I left before they could tell me to. I ended up behind the old Sears building. Big empty lot, cracked pavement, weeds growing through the cracks. 3 other vehicles were already there. A blue van with a dented fender, a gray pickup with a camper shell, another sedan with blankets covering the windows. We were a community of invisible people pretending not to see each other. I'd park in the far corner. Same spot every night. Lock the doors, crack the windows, recline the seat. Try to sleep. The other vehicles would arrive at different times. The van around 10, the pickup after midnight, the sedan just before dawn. We had our routines, our territories, our unspoken rules. Sometimes I'd see the van guy, younger, maybe 40s, always wearing a Seahawks cap. He'd get out to stretch, walk the perimeter of the lot, get back in. We never made eye contact. The pickup guy was older, 70 maybe. I saw him one morning washing his face with bottled water beside his truck, using a rag to scrub his neck, his arms. I looked away fast. Didn't want to acknowledge what we were both doing. The sedan I never saw anyone get in or out of. Just blankets in the windows and sometimes condensation on the glass that we were all pretending. Pretending this was temporary. Pretending we had somewhere else to be during the day. Pretending we weren't homeless, that my back pain was constant now. A deep ache that never left. I was taking 4 ibuprofen every 6 hours. Knew it was too much. Knew it could damage my stomach, my kidneys. Didn't care. The pain was worse than the risk that I wasn't sleeping more than 3 hours a night. I'd doze off around 2, wake up at 5 with my heart racing, sure someone was outside the car. It happened every night. The panic, the adrenaline, the certainty that this was it. Another stroke, this time in a parking lot behind an abandoned Sears that I started parking near the ER some nights. Not in the hospital lot, they'd tell me, but on the street nearby, close enough to see the ambulance bay, the lit windows, the people going in and out. Close enough to feel like help was near if I needed it. Close enough to remember I used to be someone who went inside those doors and got helped. Not someone who slept outside them in a car. One night, I sat there watching the ER entrance until 3 in the morning. Watched people arrive in ambulances, in cars, on foot. Watched nurses and scrubs hurrying between buildings. Watched the automatic doors slide open and closed, open and closed. Then I started the car and drove back to the Sears lot. But the next night, I went back to the ER. And the night after that. And I started to wonder, what if I just went inside? May 2024. The ER waiting room at St. Joseph's. I walked in at midnight with my walker, a plastic bag with a change of clothes, and my purse. Went straight to the chairs along the wall and sat down. Nobody stopped me. Nobody asked questions. The waiting room was maybe half full. A kid with a broken arm, mother beside him looking worried. A woman coughing into a towel. A man holding his stomach and rocking slightly. A couple arguing in whispers near the vending machines. Everyone focused on their own emergencies. I sat in the corner chair, the one that gave me a view of the whole room. Put my walker beside me. Set my plastic bag on the floor. And waited. The fluorescent lights were brutal. That flickering kind that gets inside your skull and pounds. But it was warm. The chairs were padded. There was a bathroom I could use without anyone watching. Water fountain near the entrance. Vending machines if I had money, which I didn't. A nurse walked through every 30 minutes or so. Called names. People stood and followed her through the double doors. New people arrived. The composition of the room changed, but the room itself stayed the same. Nobody questioned why I was there. Nobody asked if I needed help. I was just another person waiting. That was enough. I stayed until 4 in the morning. Dozed upright, head tipped back against the wall, walker beside me like a shield. Woke up every time the automatic doors opened, every time someone walked past. But I slept. Actually slept. More than I had in weeks. For I stood up, grabbed my things, and walked out. The night clerk glanced at me. I nodded. She nodded back. That was it. I did it again 2 nights later. Same routine. Midnight arrival, corner chair, plastic bag on the floor. Stayed until 4 and left before the shift changed. By the third time the night clerk recognized me. She was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. She didn't say anything, but I saw her watching. Not suspicious, concerned. Like she knew but wasn't going to do anything about it. I started doing it 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My schedule. My routine. The other nights I was in the car at the Sears lot, back screaming, panic attacks waking me up every few hours. But those 3 nights a week I had the waiting room. Warm, lit, padded chairs, a bathroom. Almost like being inside again. I felt like a ghost. Like I was haunting my own life. Moving through spaces where I didn't belong anymore, but had nowhere else to go. I thought about Sunday dinners at my old house. Melissa and the kids coming over. Pot roast and mashed potatoes. The baby in the high chair smearing carrots on his face. Ryan used to come too, before he got distant. Before something I still didn't understand pulled him away. I thought about my ex-husband. How he used to say I worried too much. That I should loosen up. How angry that made me. Now I wondered if he'd been right. If all my careful planning had been pointless. One night in late May I was in the waiting room and my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Collectors, probably. But something made me pick up. Is this Eleanor? A woman's voice. Professional. Neutral. Yes. This is the Social Security Administration. I'm calling about your disability application. My heart stopped. Started again. Yes. Your application has been approved. You'll receive $1,383 per month. Plus, you can keep your existing Social Security. First payment will be issued within 2 weeks. I sat there holding the phone. Couldn't speak. Ma'am, are you there? Yes, I whispered. Thank you. After she hung up, I did the math in my head. 1383 plus 1847. 3230 total. It felt like a fortune and also nowhere near enough. But it was something. Maybe enough for an apartment. Maybe enough to stop sleeping in my car. Maybe enough to stop being a ghost. June 2024. The disability money hit my account on a Tuesday. I checked my phone at the library, logged into my bank app. Balance, $5,483. The $1,383 was there. Plus the Social Security. Plus what was left from the house money. I had $3,230 a month now. Regular income. Steady. Not enough to undo what I'd lost, but enough to maybe survive. I sat in the library parking lot and made a list on the back of a receipt. What I needed: apartment, first month, last month, deposit. Most places wanted all 3. That was at least $2,500, probably more. I had $5,483. If I found a place for $850 a month, I'd have about $2,000 left after move-in costs. I started calling apartment managers that afternoon. Used the library computer to search listings. Studio apartments in Tacoma. One bedroom if I could find it cheap enough. The first manager I called asked about my income. I told her. She asked about my credit. I said it was bad, foreclosure, collections, medical debt. She said, "I'm sorry, we can't work with that." Second manager, same thing. Third manager hung up when I mentioned the foreclosure. Fourth manager, a woman named Brenda at Parkview Apartments, actually listened. "You're on disability?" "Yes." "And Social Security?" "So steady income." $32.30 a month." "Yes." "And you're currently homeless?" I hesitated. "Yes." Silence on the other end. Then, "Let me see what I can do." She called me back an hour later. "I have a studio. $875 a month. It's not fancy. Building smells like grease, bars on the windows, kind of rough neighborhood. But it's clean and it's available. First, last, and 500 deposit. That's 20 to 50 up front." "I'll take it," I said. Didn't even ask to see it. "You sure? You want to come look at it first?" "I'm sure." We met the next day. The building was exactly what she'd described. Old, tired, bars on every window. Smelled like cooking oil and cigarette smoke. But it had a door with a lock and a bathroom and a small kitchen corner. The studio was on the second floor. Stained brown carpet. Humming refrigerator. Single bare bulb in the ceiling fixture. Window overlooking the parking lot. But it was inside. For walls. A roof. A place to exist. "I'll take it," I said again. Brenda looked at me. Really looked at me. Saw the car I'd arrived in packed with trash bags. Saw the walker. Saw the exhaustion in my face. "You've been living in your car?" "Yes." She nodded. Didn't say she was sorry. Just nodded. "Let's do the paperwork." I wrote a check for $2,250. First, last, deposit. Watched my bank balance drop to $3,233. But I had keys in my hand. Keys to a door. Keys to inside. "You can move in tomorrow," Brenda said. That night, I slept in the car one more time. Behind the Sears building. Blue van still there. Pickup truck. Other sedan. The rotation continuing without me. Tomorrow I'd be inside. Not saved. Not secure. But inside that I thought about the $22,000 in medical debt still hanging over me. About my destroyed credit. About having no savings, no buffer, no safety net. About being one emergency away from right back here. But tonight, I had keys in my pocket. Tomorrow I'd have a door that locked. IT would have to be enough. Wednesday morning. Move-in day. I loaded my trash bags into the car one more time. The last time from the Sears lot. The blue van was gone. Just the pickup and the sedan now. The rotation kept moving. I drove to Parkview Apartments. Parked in front of the building. Carried my bags up the stairs. 2 trips because I could only manage one bag and the walker at a time. Unlocked the door to number 2D at the studio was exactly as I remembered. Stained carpet. Bare bulb. Humming fridge. Window with bars. Empty except for the carpet stains and the smell of old grease soaked into the walls that I set my bags down. Closed the door. Locked it. Stood there for a minute just feeling the lock click into place. Then I sat on the floor and cried. Not soft crying. Hard, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep. Partly relief. Partly grief for everything I'd lost to get here. Partly fear because I knew this wasn't stable, wasn't secure, wasn't safe. That I cried for maybe 10 minutes. Then I stopped. Wiped my face with my sleeve. Started unpacking, medications first. I had a whole system, pill organizer, alarm on my phone, list of what to take when. I set it up on the kitchen counter. Blood pressure pills. Blood thinners. Cholesterol medication. Anti-seizure meds to prevent another stroke. 23 pills a day, clothes next. I didn't have a dresser, so I folded everything and stacked it in the corner. 3 pairs of jeans. 5 shirts. Underwear, socks. 1 jacket. The walker I propped by the door even though I barely needed it anymore. Kept it as a reminder. Of what? I wasn't sure. Blankets I spread on the floor where I'd sleep. Couldn't afford a bed yet. Maybe next month I could get an air mattress. Or a sleeping bag. Something between me and the carpet. I sat against the wall and looked around. This was it. For 100 square feet of stained carpet and fluorescent light. $875 a month. The most I could afford. I thought about my ex-husband. Dead 6 years now. How he used to say I worried too much about money. That I should live a little. I used to get so angry at him for that. Now I wondered if he'd been right. If all my careful saving had been for nothing. If doing everything right had mattered at all, the duplex had been mine. Paid off. 17 years of equity. And 20% of a hospital bill had taken it that I thought about Sunday dinners. The grandkids. Melissa's oldest doing crafts at the kitchen table. The baby throwing food from the high chair. Ryan showing up late, but showing up, back before he got distant and strange that I thought about my transcription work. 31 years. Good at it. Reliable. Then my hand stopped working and it was over. That night, I lay on the floor with blankets under me and did the math one more time. Income, $3,230. Rent, $875. Medications, $320. Utilities, $180. Phone and internet, $150. Food, $300 if I was careful. That was $1,825 total. Left me $1 $405. Sounded okay until I remembered the $22,000 in medical debt. Collections agencies would come for me. Already were. My credit was destroyed. I had no savings. If anything broke, another stroke, car died, dental emergency, I was right back on the street. Being inside didn't mean I was safe. Just meant I had more time before the next thing came. I stared at the ceiling. Single bare bulb. Water stain in the corner. Cracks in the plaster. This was what I got to keep now. And even this wasn't guaranteed. Late June. I sat on the floor of the studio with my phone calculator open. Made a new budget. Had to see it in numbers to believe it was real. Income, $3,230. Social Security plus disability. Steady. Reliable. First time in months I had steady money coming. Expenses. Rent, $875. Medications, $320. The Part D coverage helped, but not enough. Utilities, $180. Phone and internet, $150 because I needed it for medical appointments, for staying connected. Food, $300 if I stayed careful. No meat. Rice and beans. Eggs when they were on sale. Total expenses, $1,825. Left me $1 for $5,1400 a month extra. Sounded like a lot. Sounded like I could breathe. Then I thought about the debt. $22,000 in collections. Hospital bills, rehab bills, doctor bills. All of it sitting out there waiting. Collections agencies calling the few times I answered my phone. Letters arriving at the apartment now instead of the car. Thought about my credit. Destroyed. Foreclosure on my record. Collections. Late payments. I couldn't get a credit card if I tried. Couldn't get a loan. Couldn't get anything. Thought about the apartment. $875 a month was barely affordable now. If rent went up next year, and it would, I'd be right back on the edge. If utilities spiked in winter when I needed heat. If my medications changed and the copays increased. If literally anything went wrong, no savings. No buffer. One emergency away from homelessness again. I thought about what an emergency looked like now. Another stroke. Deductibles and copays would wipe me out. Car breaking down. I needed the car for doctor appointments, for getting groceries, for everything. Dental emergency. My teeth were already going bad from months of not brushing properly, from living in the car, from stress grinding them down at night. Any of it would break me. I put the phone down. Looked around the studio. Stained carpet. Humming fridge. Bare bulb. Bars on the window. This was survival, not security. This was barely making it. And only because disability had finally come through I thought about people who said if you work hard, if you're responsible, if you do everything right, you'll be okay. I'd done all of that. Worked 31 years. Saved money. Paid off my house early. And I'd still ended up homeless because Medicare had a gap and I fell through at 20%. That's all it took. The difference between 80% coverage and 100% coverage. 6,000 became 16,000 became 22,000. And 22,000 took my house and put me in a car and left me here, in a studio that smelled like grease with $1,400 a month I couldn't really keep. The math didn't close. It looked like it closed on paper, but when you added in the debt, the lack of savings, the certainty of something going wrong, it didn't close. I was housed. I was inside. I had a locked door, but I wasn't safe. Just had more time. A week later my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I'd been waiting for a call from the doctor's office about a prescription refill. Is this Eleanor? Man's voice. Professional. Scripted. Yes. This is Allied Collections calling about account number ending in 7423. Hospital debt in the amount of $22,000. We're authorized to offer a settlement. My stomach dropped. What kind of settlement? If you can pay $15,000 within 90 days, we'll forgive the remaining balance. 15,000. I had 1850 left from the house money after paying rent. Even if I had 15,000, I'd have nothing left. No buffer. No emergency fund. Nothing. I don't have 15,000, I said. We can also offer a payment plan. $280 a month. 280. I calculated fast. That would leave me $1125. Rent, utilities, medications, food. I could make it work. Barely. For 5 years. I need to think about it, I said. I'll note that in your file. We'll call back next week. After he hung up, I sat there with the phone in my hand. $280 a month. 5 years. And at the end, I'd have nothing to show for it except paid off debt from getting sick. This was what the rest of my life looked like. Paying for the crime of having a stroke while Medicare only covered 80%. That I told the collector I'd think about it. But we both knew I didn't have a choice. Early July. I'd been in the studio 3 weeks. Starting to feel almost normal. Waking up on solid ground instead of a car seat. Using a real bathroom. Cooking simple meals on the 2-burner stove. Then the collections agent called back. Have you had time to consider our offer? Same professional voice. Same script that I'd spent the week running numbers. 15,000 up front was impossible. I had $1,850 left. That was for emergencies. For the inevitable something that would go wrong. I can't pay 15,000, I said. The payment plan, $280 a month? Yes, $280 monthly for 60 months. We can set that up today. 60 months. 5 years. I'd be 68 when it was paid off. If I made every payment. If nothing else went wrong, I did the math again out loud. That leaves me $1125 a month after rent, utilities, medications, and food. Is that workable for you? Workable. Like it was a choice. Like I could say no and the debt would disappear. What happens if I don't pay? The debt remains on your credit report. We can pursue legal action, wage garnishment if you return to work, liens on future assets. Future assets. I almost laughed. What assets? I lived in a studio apartment with bars on the windows. My car was 17 years old. My savings were gone. My house was gone. What else could they take? I'll do the payment plan, I said. Excellent. I'll need your checking account information for automatic withdrawal. I gave it to her. Routing number. Account number. Authorization to pull $280 on the 15th of every month. You're all set, she said. First payment will process in 1 week. After she hung up, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall. Looked around the studio. This was my life now. $1125 a month after mandatory expenses. $135 for incidentals. If the car broke down, if I got sick again, if rent went up, game over. I thought about the duplex. Sitting at my kitchen table working, coffee beside me, morning light through the window. 17 years in that house. Paid off early. Proud of that. So proud. Gone because I had 2 strokes and Medicare covered 80% instead of 100.20%. 6,000 became 16,000 became 22,000. 22,000 took my house, put me in a car, left me here with a payment plan that would take 5 years. I thought about my ex-husband again. How he'd say I worried too much about money. That I should loosen up. Live a little. I used to get so angry at him. Thought he was irresponsible. Reckless. Now I wondered if he'd been right. If all my careful saving and planning had mattered. If doing everything right made any difference when the system was designed to let you fall through to. I'd worked 31 years. Paid into Medicare my whole life. Believe the promise. Work hard. Pay your taxes. And when you get old, when you get sick, the safety net will catch you. The safety net had a gap. 20%. And I'd fallen through. That night, I stood at the window looking down at the parking lot. Second floor view. Streetlights casting yellow pools on the cracked pavement. A few cars scattered around. And in the corner, under a broken streetlight, a blue van with a dented fender. The same van from the Sears lot. From my homeless rotation, someone was still living in it. Still out there. Still in the cycle I'd barely escaped. I watched for a while. Saw movement inside. A shadow adjusting. Someone settling in for the night. Couldn't see details. Just the shape of a person existing in a vehicle. I thought about how close I still was to that. How the distance between the van and my studio was mostly luck and timing. How if disability hadn't come through, if Brenda hadn't said yes, if any single thing had gone differently, I'd still be down there. I didn't feel grateful exactly. Didn't feel like I'd won anything. Just felt like I was standing on a narrow ledge and the van was visible below, and one wrong step would put me back there. The collections payment would start next week. $280 a month. 5 years. That was the price of surviving a stroke with Medicare that I turned away from the window, but the image stayed with me. The blue van. The person inside. The proximity of homelessness even from inside. Even now, even here, I was one emergency away. Mid-July. The studio had become routine. Wake up on the floor, blankets twisted around me. Take morning medications, 8 pills with breakfast. Make coffee on the 2-burner stove. Sit by the window and watch the parking lot wake up. And every morning, the blue van was there. Same spot. Under the broken streetlight in the far corner that I started paying attention. Noticing patterns. The van would leave around 7, come back after dark. Sometimes it would idle for a few minutes before parking. Sometimes I'd see movement inside. Shadows through the tinted windows, someone adjusting, settling. One night, I stood at the window and watched longer. It was late, maybe 11. The van pulled in, backed into the corner spot. Lights off, engine off, then nothing. Just stillness that I wondered who was in there. Man, woman, young, old. What their story was. How they'd ended up living in a van in the parking lot of a low-income apartment building. Whether they'd done everything right like I had and fallen through any way that I wondered if they knew someone was watching from a second-floor window. If they cared. If they felt as invisible as I'd felt those months in my car that I thought about the Sears lot. The rotation. The unspoken rules. The way we all pretended not to see each other because seeing meant acknowledging, and acknowledging meant accepting that this was real. We were really there, really homeless. The van stayed. Week after week. Same spot. Same routine. I started thinking of it as a marker. A measuring stick for how far I'd come and how close I still was to going back. Some nights I'd stand at the window and calculate the distance. 30 feet from my window to the ground. Another 100 feet to the van. That was the physical distance. The actual distance was smaller. One missed rent payment. One medical emergency. One car breakdown that I couldn't afford to fix that I kept the walker folded by the door even though I barely needed it anymore. Couldn't quite name why. Maybe it reminded me of the hospital, the strokes, the beginning of everything falling apart. Maybe it reminded me I'd survived. Maybe both. The collection payment had started. $280 pulled from my account on the 15th. Balance dropping to $845. Barely workable. Barely enough that I thought about Melissa. Hadn't talked to her since before I moved in. Thought about calling, telling her I had an apartment, that I was okay. But I didn't feel okay, and I didn't want to lie. Didn't want to hear her relief and know it was temporary. Thought about Ryan. Still hadn't heard from him. That one text, "Mom, I told you I can't deal with this right now," still sat in my phone. I hadn't deleted it. Kept it like evidence of something I couldn't quite name. The blue van was still there tonight. I could see it from my window. Streetlight out. Just a dark shape in the corner. Someone inside trying to sleep. Someone still in the rotation that I'd been that person. 3 months ago, I'd been exactly that person. Sleeping in a car, moving between parking lots, pretending I was invisible. Now I was inside. Had a door that locked. Had a floor to sleep on. Had regular income and a payment plan and $11.25 a month after expenses. But I also had $22,000 in debt, destroyed credit, no savings. And the certain knowledge that one emergency would put me right back there. The distance between the van and my studio wasn't as far as it looked that I turned away from the window. Looked around the studio. Stained carpet. Bare bulb. Humming fridge. This was what I got to keep. This narrow, uncertain, indoor space. And even this wasn't guaranteed that I thought about Medicare. The promise they'd sold me. Work hard, pay in, and we'll take care of you. 80% coverage. The gap between 80 and 100 had swallowed my house, my savings, my life that I thought about doing everything right. 31 years of work. Mortgage paid off early. Careful saving. And it hadn't mattered. The system had a gap and I'd fallen through, and now I was here, watching someone else fall through in real time from a second-floor window. The van would probably still be there tomorrow. And the day after. And I'd still be here, inside but not safe. Housed but not secure. This was what I got to keep now, and I understood, finally, that keeping it would take everything I had left. Late July. I'd been in the studio 5 weeks. Long enough to know the sounds. The couple fighting upstairs. The thin walls carrying every word. The teenagers next door playing music until 2 a.m. The hum of the refrigerator that never quite stopped. Long enough to know this was as good as it was going to get. I kept the walker by the door. Didn't need it much anymore. My left side had recovered enough to get around without help, but I couldn't put it away. Some mornings I'd look at it and remember the hospital, the rehab center, learning to write my name again, learning to be a person again. Other mornings I'd look at it and remember the car, the Walgreens lot, the Sears parking lot, the ER waiting room at 4 a.m. What it felt like to need it and have nowhere stable to use it. The walker was both things, survival and fragility. What I'd been through and what I was still carrying. I thought about the duplex a lot. 17 years in that house. Kitchen table by the window. Morning light on the linoleum. Working there, coffee beside me, transcribing medical reports I'd done for 31 years. Believing I'd done everything right. I had done everything right. That was the thing. Worked hard. Saved money. Paid off the mortgage early. Paid into Medicare my whole life. And when I got sick, when I needed it, the safety net caught 80% of me. 20% fell through. And 20% was enough to take everything. 6,000 became 16,000 became 22,000. Medical debt from 2 strokes. From getting sick while having insurance. From the gap between covered and free. 22,000 took my house. Put me in a car. Left me here. I looked around the studio. Stained brown carpet. Single bare bulb in the ceiling. Humming refrigerator. Bars on the window. Water stain in the corner. Cracks in the plaster. This was what I got to keep. $8.75 a month. $11.25 left over after expenses and the collections payment. A locked door. A floor to sleep on. A bathroom I didn't have to sneak into. I thought about my children. Melissa with her own struggles, barely making rent, pregnant again. Ryan somewhere in Sacramento, distant for reasons I still didn't understand. Both of them unable to help. Both of them probably feeling guilty about it. I thought about my ex-husband. How he used to say I worried too much about money. That I should live a little. How much that used to anger me. How I don't know anymore if he was wrong. I thought about the blue van in the parking lot. Still there. Every night. Someone still living in it. Still in the rotation. The visible reminder that I'm not safe. Just housed. Not secure. Just temporarily inside. The distance between the van and this studio is luck and timing. Not merit. Not virtue. Not doing things right. I stood at the window as night fell. The parking lot lights flickered on, the broken streetlight staying dark. The blue van sat in shadow. I could see the outline of it. Could see slight movement inside. Someone settling in for another night. That I thought about all the people who'd told me Medicare would save me. Who'd said if you work hard and pay in, the system takes care of you. Who'd promised that doing everything right mattered. They were wrong. Or they were telling a truth that only worked if you never got sick, never hit the gap, never needed more than 80% coverage. I thought about what I'd tell someone in my position now. Someone facing medical bills with Medicare. Someone who believed the promise. I didn't know what I'd say. Maybe just read the fine print. Understand what 80% means. Know that the gap exists and it's big enough to fall through. But mostly I'd say, you can do everything right and still lose everything. And that's not your fault. That's the system working exactly as designed. I turned away from the window. Looked at the studio one more time. Everything I had left fit in this room. Clothes in the corner. Medications on the counter. Walker by the door. Blankets on the floor where I slept. This was what I got to keep now. $8.75 a month. Stained carpet. Bare bulb. Bars on the window. A door that locked. The knowledge that one emergency would take even this away. I thought about the word saved. How I'd believed Medicare would save me. How I'd thought doing everything right would save me. How none of it had. I wasn't saved. I was just still here. Still surviving. Still one step ahead of the van in the parking lot. And I understood that this narrow, precarious, indoor existence was the best I was going to get. That keeping it would take everything I had. That even then, it might not be enough. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall. The humming fridge. The bare bulb. The sounds of other people living their lives through thin walls. This was what I got to keep. And even this wasn't guaranteed.